40 for Rateable Crest Titans.
'19 then marks the 60th anniversary of the Dukeries Rally, an event that we've all got some fond memories of. In recent years, of course, it has brought our crews to Donington Park, and once again, the event will be sponsored by Rainworth Skoda, their 16th year of involvement with the rally. 60 stage miles lie in wait for our crews then on and off the circuit here at Donington Park, and it would be Ian Woodhouse leading those crews away in the escort. Graham Coffey leading the four-wheel drive crews away second on the road, and he'd be followed by a number of crews all capable of, and of course wanting to take home a good result this weekend. These are famous stages. Don't forget Donington Park featured in the UK round of the WRC a few years ago now. On to those stages though, it would be the lead for Ian Woodhouse and Jason Leaf. The rain not bothering the pair at all. They put in some fantastic times to take a comfortable margin by the midpoint of the rally. Mirroring the start list, it would be second place at this stage for Graham Coffey and John Atherton. They couldn't quite match the times of Woodhouse ahead. Unusual that the escort doesn't drop back with the rain, almost a minute back at this stage, the Fiesta, but they were managing to keep everyone else behind them at the moment. The rain just not bothering our two-wheel drive crews at all so far. Mike Taylor and Martin Haggett making a great start in the Lotus Bits Sunbeam this weekend, putting themselves into the podium places from the start of the day, clearly capable of and hungry for a great result here at Donington. With the exception of our rally leaders, the times on the leaderboard were close. Just 2 seconds separating Dave Welsh and Steve McNulty from those podium positions up ahead. They'd be wanting to push hard in the afternoon to try and see if they could climb up that leaderboard any further. Regulars on this event, Martin Hodgson and Tony Jones end the morning with 5th. A good start for the pair, still close on the times as well. 8 seconds back from Welsh at this stage. Surely the fight would be on into the afternoon stages. Usually not Darien weather this either, but it would be a class-leading start for Joshua and Tamsin Davey in that Darien. There was probably more to come from the pair in the afternoon as well, as the conditions hopefully dried out. At the moment they were far from ideal, but they lead the way in Class 3, as well as lying in an impressive 6th place overall. For Martin Pavia and Peter Kettle, it will be 3rd place in Class 5. The four-wheel drive class, a popular one this weekend. It was going to be a competitive one as well. They end the morning 7th place overall. And 8th place on the leaderboard would belong at this stage to this man, Nick Beddoes, Paul Dias alongside. 4th place in Class 4 as well for the escort pair at the midpoint of the rally. For Roland and Stuart Brown, meanwhile, it would be 2nd in Class 3. The pair sitting just inside our top 10 leaderboard overall as well with 9th. And rounding out the top 10 would be the ever-entertaining John Griffiths, Nigel Wetton alongside, as always, the Subaru pair, taking 4th place in the class as well at this stage. A close and entertaining top 10 in the first half of the day then, but as you know, it's not all about that top 10. Let's have a look at some of the class positions now. 3rd in Class 3 will be Kathy Seward and Colin Stevens. 2nd of the Lotus Bits team cars. Don't forget Mike Taylor out in the 3rd of our podium positions at the moment. But Kathy certainly not holding back either. They were only a minute back from the leading team car, all the way up in 3rd. The top 10 not separated by much then going into the afternoon. In Class 2, it will be the early lead for Chris Rook and Steve Harris. They lead the way in the class from 15th overall in the Corsa. And 2nd in that class would be Ashley Morris and Jamie McTavish. They were suffering with the screen misting up in places. Bit of a problem with these wet conditions in that Fiesta R200. They lie a little further back on the overall result sheets in 24th at this stage.
Keep it going, keep it going.
See the corner, Davey.
You're okay, it's 4 left. Right, 9 right. On you go now, turn out. Yeah, that's it. Then 6 left, keep out.
Chasing hard from third in that class would belong to the father and son team of Anthony and Peter Mann. This only the 5th rally for the pair, 2 of which they only completed 1 stage due to gearbox gremlins. So they were going well for a relative lack of experience behind the wheel, and they had Morris in their sights. In Class 1, it will be the lead for Dale and Andrew Lawson, out in the MG ZR this weekend, and going well in the class, as well as lying in 30th on the leaderboard. Again, another fight to keep an eye on through the afternoon in that class. Second will be Jonathan Hudson and Chris Worrell. The gap not too big, 19 seconds to be exact. But with such close competition throughout the classes, it would be a hard fight indeed if they did want to claw that back through the afternoon. The gap back to third would be a little bigger, however. Not too much. Mark Annison and Ian Humphrey taking that final podium in the class for now. 43rd on the leaderboard as well. And still a bit of work to do in the afternoon. It wouldn't deter them, though, even in these conditions. And getting in on that class battle would be this man, Ian Hambleton. Andrew Hambleton alongside. This only the 2nd time out in the co-driver's seat for 17-year-old Andrew. He seemed to be coping pretty well, it had to be said. So with the morning stages complete, the results at the top of the Rainworth Skoda Dukeries Rally at Donington Park are starting to shape up. Let's take a look at them now. Let's head out onto those afternoon stages here at Donington Park and a look at some of our finishers. It will be a successful weekend all told for Dave Ledbetter and Kath Woodman, collecting signatures for a licence upgrade as well, so they needed a finish, not least because the crew drive the car to and from the rally to compete on a budget. It's a while since you've heard of anyone doing that, right? A great finish for them, showing that you can have fun without spending a fortune. After a morning of spins and getting stuck in the gravel, it would be a welcomed break in the weather for the afternoon stages for Michael Stanley and Adam Smalley. They could push a little more as a result. Importantly, they keep it on the road now. 49th place overall for the pair. And after a great battle in Class 1, it would be a strong finish for Ian and Andrew Hambleton. They do lose their 4th place in the class though, beaten to it by just 4 seconds. Still a good finish to take home this weekend. Onto the podium in that class though, which would look pretty much the same through the afternoon. Mark Annison and Ian Humphrey continuing to hold on to that 3rd spot in the class to the finish. And for Jonathan Hudson and Chris Worrell, it would be the 2nd place in Class 1 that they came here fighting for. A good result for the pair, unable to gain any more ground on our class leaders though through the final stages despite trying. So that would, of course, for the eagle-eyed among you, mean that it's the class win for Dale and Andrew Lawson. They keep hold of that position that they'd held all day, as well as 29th overall. Keeping your nerve in these conditions is never easy. A bit of an unfortunate moment means we'd lose Anthony and Peter Mann though. They slide wide on a corner and hitting a rock. Probably the only rock at Donington Park, in fact. Unlucky for the pair after such a good start to the rally. We move on to Class 2 and there'd be some changes to note as well. We see Michael Farmer and Bruce Lindsay stepping up to take 3rd place in that class by the end of the event in the Focus. No change for a consistent and pretty hard-charging Ashley Morris and Jamie McTavish either. They end the rally 2nd in the class. No issues to report for the pair. A good, clean run, and they needed that to the finish in the Fiesta. And of course, as you saw earlier, taking the class win this weekend and still there in the lead by the finish would be Chris Rook and Steve Harris. A strong run from them all day, taking victory by just 16 seconds. There'd been no change in that pink wheel-arched Lotus Sunbeam for Kathy Seward and Colin Stevens through the afternoon, which when you look at the overall result was a pretty good thing. They'd be happy to take 3rd place in Class 3, as well as a very, very strong 12th place on the overall leaderboard. We move on then to the top 10 leaderboard overall here at the Dukeries Rally, and it would be 4th place in Class 4 by the end of the event for Sean Weston and Dean Mevo in the Escort. One car which looks and sounds the part here at Donington Park this weekend is that Skoda R5 of Carl Simmons and Mark Glenister. They climbed the results, not quite where they wanted to finish. I'm sure that their sights were set a little higher on the results, but a finish is welcomed nonetheless. 9th overall, 4th in the class. And given what they'd beaten on those timesheets, 8th at the end of the rally would be a pretty good position for Roland and Stuart Brown. They'd be happy with that. The Mark I Escort pair having a strong run to end the day with 2nd in their class as well. There's no change on the result for Martin Pavia and Peter Kettle meanwhile. They keep hold of that 7th place overall, standing firm to end the rally, taking 3rd place in the class this weekend. We told you the fights in the top 10 were close though, and it would be a place lost for Martin Hodgson and Tony Jones, slipping down ever so slightly to 6th place. Still a great result for the Escort pair, considering the conditions and those four-wheel drive cars mixed in with the leaderboard. The times still close as well through to the finish. And things could have been oh so different for Joshua and Tamsin Davey. They do win Class 3, but they also get a 30-second penalty at one of the chicanes, meaning that they end the rally 5th overall, but with stage times that could surely have seen them on the podium. And speaking of podiums, frustratingly, after that heroic effort earlier in the day for Mike Taylor and Martin Haggett, they were unable to hold on to that final step on the podium through the afternoon. They do end the rally with 4th, a result that they couldn't be disappointed with. Impressive at that, but perhaps ruining what could have been with just 3 seconds to make up to 3rd place. We move on to the podium places then, and it will be Dave Welch and Steve McNulty stepping up to take that 3rd place in the final stage of the rally. A frustrating end for Mike Taylor perhaps, but an exciting day for the spectators and a great end to the rally for Welch and McNulty. For Graham Coffey and John Atherton, though, there would be no change. They reached the end of the rally with 2nd place. They would, of course, wanted victory, as everyone does, but 2nd place was a strong finish for the Fiesta pair. They also, with that, take the class victory. But that, of course, means that it's a dominant and impressive victory overall for Ian Woodhouse and Jason Leaf. They opened up a good advantage from the start. That helped them hold it into the afternoon, the confidence brimming. They take victory by over a minute at the end of the day's 7 tricky stages. That is our day here at Donington Park complete. Some excitement right through the leaderboard and some swapping of positions right there in the final stage as well. Here's a reminder of the overall results at the finish of the Dukeries Rally 2019. The Red Kite Stages then marks the crossing into the 2nd half of the season in the Pirelli Welsh Rally Championship, round 5 of this 8-round series. Let's head out onto the morning stages then here in Wales. It will be an early lead for Dylan Davies and Mark Glenister. Their first appearance of the season and in a new car, if only for this rally. The R5 Fiesta certainly capable of good things, and they were showing it here already. Behind Davies and Glenister on the leaderboard at this early stage will be Matthew Hurst and Declan Deere. They were hunting some more good points to add to their championship tally, and things were going well for the pair after the morning's 4 stages. Chasing down Hurst and rounding out the podium positions would be this man, Russ Thompson, Andy Murphy alongside. The pair leading the way in the N4 class as well at this stage, just 2 seconds back from those boys up ahead. In the positions just outside of the podium, it would be the lead in the W6 class for Steve Bennett and Oshin Owen. A good start for the pair to be leading the historic cruise at this stage. Woodgutting and Bob Stocko reaching this stage of the rally 2nd in the N4 class, just a few seconds back from Thompson up ahead. 2nd in the class, 5th on the leaderboard. 2nd of our W6 class runners and 2nd historic crew as well will be Rudy Lancaster with Guy Weaver alongside. The Escort pairing just 4 seconds back from Utting in that 4-wheel drive Subaru up ahead. And it would be a close run thing, back to third in the class as well. Tom Llewellyn and Patrick Walsh taking up that position, and just a couple of seconds behind Lancaster with it as well, chasing down that second place in the class. There'd be a pretty notable change this weekend for Chris Powell and Jim Lewis. Of course, we're used to seeing them with a Sunbeam. They end the morning with fourth in the W6 class though. A change of class, of course, coming with a change of car. They've got a Mark II Escort instead of that trusty Sunbeam, and it looked like it was a good move. The times were quick. They were settling in well to that new car. For Alan Walker and Will Rogers, it would be ninth, their second outing this season, and things were going well so far, it was fair to say, lying ninth place overall, fifth in the class. And rounding out the top 10 would be John Perrott and Andrew Sankey, the pair 13 seconds back from Walker at the midpoint of the rally. Of course, it's not all about just that top 10 leaderboard here in the Pirelli Welsh Rally Championship. So let's take a look at some of the positions outside of the top 10. Plenty of action here. It would be second in the W13 class for Andy Williams and Andy Darlington. A strong start to the rally for the Subaru pair. Behind them in the class and overall results would be Josh Taylor and Heather Merrison. Third in W13 and 5 seconds back from Williams at this stage. The fight definitely on. Andrew Fox and Den Golding would have the early lead in the W12 class this weekend. The BMW pair putting in some strong times in the class and overall leaderboards. And behind Fox and Golding on the leaderboard in the class would be Colin Griffiths and Tom Bishop. Second in the class, just 16 seconds back from Fox, up ahead then in the other BMW. And with Chris Powell out in the Escort, it would be one less crew to fight with for Dan Evans and Jess Hockley in the W3 class. Not that they mind a fight. They lead the way in that class convincingly from 14th overall. Howell Davies and Simon Jones make a good start in W5. They take the early advantage there with 4 stages under their belts now. And with that pair of BMWs fighting it out up ahead for the W12 class lead, it would be David Jones and Glyn Price taking third at this stage. The pair rounding off a brace of BMWs filling the top of that class this weekend. For Emily and Elliot Ritalik, it would be a little lonely in W2 this weekend. They were the only crew registered. It wasn't stopping them pushing though. They were going well, lying in 20th overall. For Ron Morgan and Tudor Jenkins, it would be second in W5. The times in the class were a little spread out, but they were still putting in some good pace. The W4 class, meanwhile, would see the Civic of Martin Walters and Marie Fletcher topping the results at the midpoint of the rally. Their lead in that place would be a strong one as well. In the N4 class for Rob and Ashley Aslett, it would be third. Not close enough to the top of those class results at this stage, but it wasn't stopping them from trying. The Astlets then splitting 2 W4 class contenders. Here, second in the class, it would be Steve Dealey and Alan Proudman, 28th on the overall leaderboard. And rounding out our championship runners at this stage would be Ken Davies and Alan Jones, third in the W5 class from 29th place overall. We're midway through the red kite stages then, and the leaderboard is starting to shape up. It looks like this. We're back on the stages then for a look at the final results, and there would be some change. Firstly, with the weather. The rain now falling heavily on the stages, certainly changing the challenge. And also for Emily and Elliot Ritalik. No change in the class, of course, but they round out the finishers overall. For Ken Davies and Alan Jones, it would be third in W5. No change there then, but they do gain a few places overall, moving up to 24. Just ahead of them at this stage will be the Peugeot of Steve Dealey and Alan Proudman. They hold on to their second place in the W4 class as well to the finish. No change in the N4 class though, Rob and Ashley Aslett ending the rally with third in the class, 22nd on the leaderboard. It would be a class victory though this weekend for Martin Walters and Marie Fletcher. First in W4 was theirs in that Civic. For Ron Morgan and Tudor Jenkins, it would be second in W5 this weekend. The class quite spread out on the results as we noticed earlier, so that position wouldn't change throughout the rally. There were problems though for Woodgutting and Bob Stocko, meaning that they dropped down the leaderboard into 18th, a disappointing end after lying as high as 5th overall on the rally this morning. There's some change now though in the W12 class through the afternoon stages. Kevin Metcalf and Lewis Griffiths now taking 3rd place in the class at the finish in their BMW. There was bitter disappointment inside that Mitsubishi, with issues for Matthew Hurst and Declan Deer, which saw them finish a long way down the order. They do, as far as the championship points are concerned, thankfully keep hold of 3rd in the W13 class though. But on days like today, that's a small consolation. It would be though the class victory for Howell Davies and Simon Jones this weekend. They'd held on to that position from the start, so it would be an expected but welcomed result, and as we've seen so far in this championship, and indeed on today's leaderboard, what we expect isn't always what we see at the finish. Dan Evans and Jess Hockley may have been the only competitors running in the W3 class by the finish, so the points were guaranteed, but they'd shown their pace and they had 12th place on the overall results to show for it. There's more change in W12 though as we go through the results, and sadly for Andrew Fox and Den Golding, it wasn't a good one. They dropped down to 2nd in the class. They'd held the lead this morning, but it wasn't to be through the afternoon stages. They didn't quite have the pace. We move on to the top 10 then, and it's a 10th place finish for Andy Williams and Andy Darlington, the pair taking 2nd in W13 this weekend. We saw that drop down to 11th then on the leaderboard for Andrew Fox and Den Golding, and that's as a result of this fight for the W12 class lead, which would of course mean a change to the lead, and it would be Colin Griffiths and Tom Bishop who take the points this weekend, taking the victory by just 15 seconds. For Josh Taylor and Heather Merrison, it would be the W13 class victory. A good end to the rally for the pair, taking that position through the afternoon stages as well as 8th place overall. A popular class this weekend, indeed filling out the top of our results, was the W6 class, and for John Perrott and Andrew Sankey it would be 5th, 7th place overall. That fairly monumental move to the Escort had gone well seemingly for Chris Powell and Jim Lewis. As far as this weekend was concerned anyway, they reached the end of the rally with 6th place overall, 4th in W6 among our regulars here in the Welsh Rally Championship. And one of those regulars will be Tom Llewellyn with Patrick Walsh alongside. They take the final podium step in the class, as well as 5th on the leaderboard, 38 seconds ahead of Powell. No change to that class position then for Rudy Lancaster and Guy Weaver. 2nd in W6 will be theirs this weekend. They do, though, gain a couple of positions to take 4th overall. On we go then to the podium places, and we conclude the W6 class fight, which at the end of the day went with top honours in the two-wheel drive crews as well to Steve Bennett and Ocean Owen. Winners of the N4 class this weekend would be Russ Thompson and Andy Murphy. Their class position may not have changed throughout the day, but the loss of Matthew Hurst from 2nd would mean that that position becomes theirs at the finish. But taking victory this weekend in a highly anticipated debut in the new car would be Dylan Davies and Mark Lanister. What a day it had been for them in that Fiesta, taking the victory by 53 seconds at the end of the day's 6 stages. Here's your confirmation then of the overall final results on the Red Kite stages, round 5 of the Pirelli Welsh Rally Championship.